Hello and welcome to another episode of Fresh Off the Set. I'm Alora Murray.
And I am Kari Diaz. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast today. So this one is definitely more of a serious podcast. We are talking to Candace Rivera. So actually you and I, Alora, we both met Candace at a retreat. Do you remember that?
Yes, absolutely. I remember the event we were at, and I remember meeting her, and I was like, this woman, you know when you're around people sometimes and you just get this vibe from them that you're like, this person is so amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And the word I want to use for her is powerful. Like, she has such a powerful presence.
That's exactly what I was just going to say.
And the work she is doing right now, and like you said, this podcast is going to be really heavy, but the work she is doing right now is so important. She is literally saving the world. I don't say that lightly. This woman is absolutely incredible.
She is. She's saving lives. This is what she does it every single day. So this podcast, we're talking about human trafficking, and it actually happens here. Can you believe that? Here in Utah, it happens quite frequently here. So Candace, she's the founder and CEO of Exitus. It's an anti-trafficking organization, and we talk about how prevalent human trafficking is in the world, even here, how it can happen, signs to watch for, and what you can do to help. Should we just give it a listen?
Let's do it.
I am so thankful to have Candace Rivera on our podcast today. Candace, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate being here.
Well, this is, of course, a topic that we don't discuss all the time, but we need to. And this is why we have you here to start these conversations. But maybe we just start with Exitus, which is your company. Tell me about Exitus, what it is.
Yes, these are hard conversations to have, and it's one of the reasons why I founded Exitus. As a person with a medical background, so I had started in nursing, I was helping a lot of organizations work in child exploitation, orphan crisis, orphan relief, and I was doing work internationally, pro bono, and working contractually with other organizations. There were massive gaps from a medical perspective that we were missing when we were working with exploitation and refugee care, and part of that was aftercare. When we were working in, a lot of people will say trafficking, I use the term exploitation. So when you're working in exploitation, there are mass things that are missed, aftercare being the largest, because aftercare is so big and so complex. And so when we talk about the trauma that needs to be associated with the exit of these individuals in these trafficking situations and these exploitation situations and lifestyles, it is incredibly monumental to their actual healing, because we cannot just take these individuals out of a situation and drop them off somewhere. We have to provide substantial aftercare resources. So Exitus was founded in the sense of, how do we fill those gaps? We weren't doing a very good job before. And being an operator myself and working pro bono with these other companies, loved what we were doing, loved the organizational work we were doing, but we were just missing the mark barely. And that barely portion was that gap of what happens next? Where do these people go next? And a lot of people didn't know, and there was really no answers. And so myself and quite a few other operators said, hey, I bet we can fix this problem. I bet we can start to create a solution. And so we came up with the Exitus model and the concept of implementing in these trafficking communities for long-term periods of time, for a year at a minimum, utilizing our skill sets. Our operators, our founders, they're not all of these Navy SEAL, Rambo style, weird superhero
Things
gear.
that you see in the movies.
Yeah, they aren't those type of operators. A lot of them are clinicians, physicians, therapists, mentors, social workers. In fact, in our most recent sting operation, one of our girls goes, no one's going to believe this. I wasn't rushed by a bunch of cops. I was rushed by a bunch of social workers. And it was kind of entertaining, because that's the concept of Exitus, is you're coming in this model of healing, holistic healing. And that's what these survivors need, is they need healing. Once they're healed, they're able to actually testify, give witness testimony, and prosecute their traffickers as well. So Exitus stems from the idea of being in the trafficking community, providing exit, and then an exit strategy and plan for these individuals to actually have true healing, which is very long-term. So they need housing for at a minimum 8 to 10 months. We typically like a year. And then after that, job skills, education, ongoing support through many, many avenues, which is why we have such a large partner base.
Oh, thank goodness that resource is available and for everything you were doing, because you don't really think about that. You think, okay, let's get them out of there, but what next? You know, and they need that long healing. What is human trafficking, and what happens to someone if they are trafficked?
Yes, I love this question because I think we have a mass misconcept across the nation of what trafficking is. Human trafficking is a legal term we created for the legal system. It's actually very broken down exploitation of a vulnerable population. There is vulnerability there. People who exploit those people see that vulnerability and they exploit it to the mass means by force or coercion. And so that's what we see in human trafficking. When you think of vulnerable individuals, single mothers who are job to job, low skill sets, possibly these teenage moms, foster care children, are low socioeconomic areas, minority individuals, individuals who maybe have substance abuse prior to their trafficking experiences, individuals who have low self-esteem. Maybe they have generational trauma in their family by abuse prior to. Predators prey on the low self-esteem model, which looks like, and I know we're going to get into this a little bit later, how they come across in the grooming portion of that. We love low self-esteem if we're a predator. That allows us to groom and mold you into what we want to mold you into, and you are very easily able to sell that person when they're molded into what you want them to be, and that's called grooming. And so that's where these victims and these who we like to call survivors come from, and that's typically where a trafficker loves to prey. And so when we talk about trafficking, it's exploitation of a vulnerable population.
Okay. Now, how did you get started in the anti-human trafficking efforts? And you spoke with that a little bit, but let's dive into that a little more.
Yes. Actually, a personal story, and I love to share the personal side. I think people come to me all the time for stats and statistics and want the hard proof, but I do have this very personal connection. And I was helping from a medical perspective a team, and I actually was writing for an organization. I love writing. If you follow me, you see oftentimes I write about my experiences in the trafficking world. And I was writing to be compelling for her. She needed more medical individuals to help. And she wasn't finding anyone to help on a particular case. And I was like, oh, hey, I have a substantial nursing background. I'd be happy to help. And so I went and I experienced what I didn't know what trafficking was. This was years ago. I didn't really understand it. And I didn't know that these individuals could still have families, because I thought, what Hollywood shows you, they're taken, or there's no one around, or everyone was murdered in some crazy, takedown by a cartel.
Right.
And which is really what I thought. And so I came, and I had a young girl who was 14 at the time, and she had been sold when she was a baby. So her backstory was mom was 19 in an Eastern European country, making $1, $2 an hour, and she was unwed. And she came to a hospital because baby had visual impairments. This hospital was a trafficking hospital. This is very common in Eastern Europe and other places around the world. And what these physicians will do will tell mom, hey, you can't take care of this baby, we will. Typically, they'll either pay mom, or they'll just say, mom, you can keep watching, and we'll send stories. So they send fake pictures and fake stories.
She thinks this is a great thing.
Absolutely. She thinks someone's going to take care of her baby because she can't. Mm-hmm. She makes $1, an hour, if that, at best. She can't take care of this baby, and she loves her child. So yes, she's trusting this hospital to take care of this baby. So she gave baby to hospital. Hospital then sold it to the traffickers they partner with, and she happened to find baby on an online ad. Years later, she realized it was her daughter. And when I say baby, it was a toddler at the time, so she easily could see it was her daughter on these ads. Went looking for her, and that's when we actually picked up those ads, the particular team I was with, and I was brought on as medical support. We were actually leaving that area, and as we were leaving, an older woman came with a toy in hand and gave it to her. I had no idea what this situation looked like. Again, I was very much nuanced as a baby in the field. And she said, this was my granddaughter. She said her mom was murdered trying to find her. She should take her far, far away. And from that moment, I knew, and I always get emotional telling this story because for me, it's one of those moments very pivotal in my life where I say, I get to meet her mom one day. And I get to tell her I saw her daughter like I would want my own children to be seen. And so I knew I will do this work the rest of my life because there are plenty of other children and people who are dying to be seen, and someone fought for them at one point in time, or maybe no one did, and they deserve someone too. They deserve to be seen. They need to be seen. And so for me, Exitus is very personal because I saw. Once you see, you can't unsee. And so along with other people who were in the work with me, in the trenches with me at the time, and who have come along since, we have seen those things, and we can't unsee them. And so we want to show the rest of the world what those true things are and how they can't unsee them and what they can do about them.
Candace, that's so powerful. Wow. Yeah, I see. I knew you were passionate about this, but you get the backstory and you really see why. Let's talk about you think of somebody being sold. What does the transaction and price tag look like? And I feel so horrible just even asking that, even saying that out loud. It's awful, but this happens.
It does, and it's interesting because I think without a price tag, it's not real. I think it's this very like, oh yeah, people get sold every day. There's this exchange, something happens. There is a price tag. In fact, in Utah, we're in Utah, and the price tag transactionally at different levels equates to $40, $80, and $100, depending upon the level of sexual transaction that's being provided by the girl, and based off of the circumstantial fantasy. So, for instance, we have a girl who just recently testified in a grand jury case, and the fantasy was a kidnap and rape fantasy. So she was tied up to a pole repeatedly during the days so that the individuals who booked her through her trafficker could come along, and every hour or so they would come and give a kidnap style fantasy and pay extra for that. And that young lady endured that for 18 months. And that to me showcases the horrors of this world, but also on the demand side that there are people who are booking rape fantasies and kidnap fantasies like that.
I have to take a breath. That's a lot. Wow. And do you see this in Utah? Let's talk about Utah specifically.
Absolutely. I'm a crier. I'll cry with you.
Okay, good.
I cry with our girls all the time.
It's a tough subject. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, there's not a lot of space for this. It's hard to talk about. And so these girls will come in my home. So I sit and cry with them. My heart is I'm a bleeding heart with them. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about it, is because I cry when I tell our donors. I cry when I tell our volunteers. Our volunteers come along. I'm like, this is going to be hard. You want to come and help with this? And I cry with these girls. So I cry right along with you because they're hard stories to tell. And yes, that story is from Utah. It is incredibly prevalent in Utah. In fact, Utah is 46th in the nation for our trafficking problem, which means there are only 4 other states that are worse than us. And that's
46.
46. And that should make anyone who lives in Utah incredibly uncomfortable. Recently, it is Crime Victims Week and Crime Victims' Rights Week here in Utah. And one of the things we talked about on social media was that of sex crimes that are reported, which include trafficking crimes, only 11% of the crimes in Utah are actually reported. And of that, only 6% are prosecuted, which should make everyone incredibly uncomfortable because that means 92% of these predators were walking around Utah without any repercussion. Trafficking is incredibly prevalent here because we don't have repercussion. Nationwide, the average sentencing and penalty for trafficking is 5 to 7 years.
That's it?
That's it. For a lifetime of trauma. The average girl is violated 16 times a day. So think of violations 16 times a day, what that looks like over the course of a week or 6 months, 6 years. In 6 years, I mean, these girls can be trafficked for years, decades at a time. And their perpetrators are only getting 5 to 7 years.
Wow. Are there signs, like if we're out and about in the public, are there signs and things that we as human beings can look for to help? And what do we do at that point?
Yes. I love the See Something, Say Something campaign. A lot of individuals have been helped through if you see something, say something. I feel like this is a great question because it's actually changing a lot. The perception of what a trafficked individual is really important. We used to think it was just a small child tied up in a basement somewhere. And how do you recognize that? How do you see that? But really, trafficking is a vast array of different modes and styles. That includes labor trafficking, indentured servitude, obviously our sex acts, and then we also have organ trafficking. Labor trafficking is one where individuals, and this happens quite a bit, especially right now. I was just with John Walsh, and we were talking about what's happening across our border. There's a lot of labor trafficking happening where individuals are brought with hopes and dreams of possibly sending money home, getting a green card. This is a very real problem. It is not political. It is a human problem. And they are forced to work in either meat factories, laundry shops, restaurants. Sometimes they're your waiters. Their passports are held. Sometimes it's massage parlors. Passports are held, IDs are held, and they're forced to work. They're typically paid just enough to live, but not enough to get out of those circumstances. It falls along that lines of indentured servitude and labor trafficking. Many companies have been accused of that, and I think that our government is tracking, hyping down on that recently with labor trafficking and hopefully creating a dent in that. When we only look at child sex trafficking, we miss a lot of that. That's 90% of our human trafficking is labor and other styles of indentured servitude. But real clear signs, easy to spot in individuals when they're not speaking for themselves. Girls who appear to be groomed in the sense of there's someone leading them around. It can be a male or a female. They are never out in public, very isolated, have no idea where their money is coming from. We have a particular girl right now that we're working with, and everything is provided for by her trafficker. She's terrified to leave them because they provide her apartment. She has a small child. They provide all of her transportation. They even were the ones providing for her food and her medical care and picking up her prescriptions. That isolation of providing everything for them makes it terrifying to leave an exploitation situation.
Okay, so if you're, you may not be seeing them because they're kept at home and they're kept kind of away from the public. And if you are seeing them in public, they're not speaking for themselves, probably following someone. Okay, so those are good things to look out for. If we sense something, if we feel something's off that we need to maybe call what would we do at that point to try to help?
Yes, there is a little bit of contradiction right now. And so just to address that, a lot of people want to call the National Human Trafficking Hotline. That was run through Polaris. It is run through Polaris and is sponsored by DHS. So Homeland Security does all of the tip lining. It does come through the FBI into Homeland Security. You can also contact any nonprofit in the coalition. So any anti-trafficking nonprofit can be contacted through social media or through their website. You can contact us, joinexitus.org. You can do that through social media, and they are connected to the National Human Trafficking Hotline. And that National Human Trafficking Hotline will then connect to any tip line. So they are trying to create a national coalition so that you can do the See Something, Say Something campaign, and it all joins. It's currently right in the middle of being manipulated to what that coalition looks like. And so there's a little bit of buffering into who's going to be handling those calls. That tip line is coming into Homeland Security and DHS through Polaris.
Okay. It almost makes me want to just have that ready right in my phone, I think we all should, right? If we see something that we're nervous about, just to be able to help, have that ready to be able to call or look up website. A lot of this you think of like strangers doing this to somebody. That's not necessarily true.
No, it is not. A majority of the girls who are being trafficked are trafficked by someone they know. And in fact, it's typically a person of authority like a spouse or possibly an adult family member. So our younger individuals in the high teenage range could be an uncle, an aunt, a parent. And then we have many women who were married to their traffickers and or were in a long-term relationship. And so the chances of being picked up by a stranger actually are outweighed by these individuals, by someone they know. Our younger generations are typically creating relationships online through mobile apps and through apps that they use with all of their friends. We see our college age demographic are meeting people online through dating apps and through other social media style apps and platforms. So they create these online relationships with them. It's someone they quote unquote know, meet that person, and unfortunately are groomed into a trafficking situation.
Wow. I just would never think that it's, somebody like within your family or somebody that you know. What should we look out for as individuals, and talk about the grooming process and signs for ourselves?
Yeah, I love this. I love this discussion because many women, especially now, are finding themselves in relationships that can be going that direction of abuse that comes through grooming styles. Grooming starts out as there's a couple of different types of groomers. One of my favorite is, we like to call them the Romeo pimp, and it's what's well known in law enforcement as well. And it's my favorite to talk about because it's the one we see the most often. It's most common, and that is that man that becomes your boyfriend, and he just is that. Maybe you were the ugly duckling in school. Or sometimes you have low self-esteem because you're just not as pretty as your best friend, and that's what you think about yourself. And then lo and behold, this Romeo pimp comes along, and he just thinks you are the dazzling diamond, you are beautiful, and he tells you everything you want to hear. You are amazing, you are smart, you are brilliant. One thing leads to another, and he says, I bought you this, and I bought you this, and he is loving to you. He's very much loving to you. He Romeo and romanticizes your relationship until he starts asking for things. And he says, but I love you. I'm short on our phone bill. Our friend said if you will do this particular sexual act, he'll give us $20 so I can pay for my cell phone bill. And then that comes into the next portion. and then the next portion. And before you know it, this is the cycle of how now your boyfriend is selling you to friend after friend after friend to pay for whatever is needed, that monetary exchange. And he's now groomed you. And it's incredibly hard to leave him because you love him. He has given you worth when no one else was giving you worth. And so what I love to tell our young women, what I love to tell single women, because I'm also a single woman, is to know your worth well beyond someone who comes along and tells you what that is. Our Romeo pimps are so common, and many of our young ladies will say, but he loved me, but he told me it was for my best interest. And that is one of our largest styles of grooming in the United States right now, is through that relationship of finding value and worth in someone and then manipulating that and monetizing that.
How do we protect our kids, Candace? Because I know that's probably what a lot of people are thinking right now, protecting our babies.
Be in open conversations. Do not dance around the words. Ask them about things. They know way more than you do. We have multiple laws for our teenagers for a reason. One being revenge porn. Revenge porn laws come into play because teenagers are dumb. We're sending explicit images of themselves. Another teenager was mad, put a different photo on that, and then spread it around the school site, and it was considered revenge porn. There is a law created against that because it was happening. Our youngest age of sexed material, sexting, whether a sound, an image, a video, any type of pornographic imagery across a sex or mobile app is 12. So when we talk about protecting our children, it is to know there are these laws and things in place because it is happening. You know, much more are exposed to much more than what you think they are. And you need to have open conversations with them. Be on their apps. Know who their friends are. More than ever right now in this world of online everything, you have got to be involved in their lives. They don't get that cell phone. They don't get that gaming device without you knowing the passwords, without you being involved. Do not let them download certain apps. You can go on our website. We very shortly will be unveiling a program we did with some former ICAC individuals about apps and how to get them off and how to provide parental tools on them. There are so many. Kids know how to do double sign-ins so that you think they have one Instagram and really there's another one. And so how do you find those? How do you get them to stop talking to friends and speak about the realities to that with them so they can be safe online?
I found this interesting too. Trafficking it follows sporting events, right? And so like NBA All-Star Weekend that we had here a little bit ago in Utah, that was a big event for you.
It was a big event. Sporting events are large areas where people with money and lots of people come in. It's an economy for a trafficker. And trafficking is an economy. It's a way to make money. All of our vendors want to come in for a sporting event. All of our traffickers want to come in for a sporting event. So this is the first time that Homeland Security made a private sector coalition and made a partnership, and we were the ones that they did that with in private sector. Very excited for that partnership because it is ongoing. We are now collaborating in an ongoing task force for multi-sporting events nationwide. It was the most successful sting operation we've had in a sporting event before nationwide, and it went on 2 days during All-Star Weekend. We saw true blue trafficking, which means girls were flown in and they had followed multiple sporting events throughout the nation, which allowed us to have ongoing investigations across state lines right now. So multi-state investigations are continuing. And then we had regular trafficking that was just ongoing in Utah, that even if it wasn't a sporting event, we still would have probably seen these girls. And so we had two demographics of trafficked individuals. The wonderful thing about this private sector partnership with Homeland Security and law enforcement at the federal and local level is that we can continue to take care of these girls so they have an aftercare situation, which allows for better prosecution, for better witness testimony, credible witnesses, and for the care of the victim themselves.
Now, I know you have a lot of people on your team, but I'm sure that you can always use more resources, items. I know that girls, women need. What can we do at home if we're thinking we want to be a part of making a difference and actually helping and being, involved?
Gosh, nothing is too small. We encounter girls all week long. Every week I get a new girl and coming into our safe house and needing something. We need everything from canned goods to our girls need yoga pants. We give out hygiene kits every single week in our outreach teams. Yoga pants, sports bras, hygiene items, makeup, clothes, those are the tangible items. Our safe house needs furnishings. We are continuing to build another safe house. Donor funds are needed to finish that safe house for these girls. What happens when we have sting operations and pull all these girls out and they're successful? They need a place to sleep. So we have to have a safe house for them, everything from bedding to having breakfast in the morning, therapy, anyone who's a therapist, modalities from equine therapy to yoga to sound bathing. We do have support groups for survivors every week, and we love survivor activities. We love companies that come along and provide activities for our survivors to go and do and be a person without all of the baggage for the day and experienced life. They've experienced Disney on Ice. They've done racing at a racetrack. They've done equine. They've done pottery. So many great companies have come along and provided survivor days. It's been so wonderful. And of course, we always need donors and great individuals who want to bring awareness to us. And help with marketing campaigns to creating fun runs. There is a space for you anywhere in this problem.
There are so many ways that we can help. And what if we as an individuals want to be part of your team or a volunteer? Can we do that too?
You absolutely can. We have opportunities for mentorships. We love having chaperones and mentors for all of our girls. Every girl is assigned a mentor. So if you are a strong female and want to be a part of that, that is a wonderful volunteer space. I know you and I have talked about that and coming in alongside mentoring our girls. For instance, we have a girl who's going to court today and she just needs someone to sit by her and hold her hand while she goes and testifies against her perpetrator. And then also volunteer opportunities from everywhere across the board are available. You can go on our website, send in an email, and we will tell you what's available. We don't even post them because there are so many opportunities because we want to know what you would like to do.
And Candace, you see the girls, and by the way, does this happen to men and women, boys and girls?
It does. It does. We more often see women than we see men. We do occasionally get men. We just have a heavy load of girls right now, so I often will see girls.
Okay. Now you see these victims kind of before and after and through the process. How are you seeing their lives changed other than just being out of their situation?
I just recently, so we partner with several other organizations as well. I believe in very much collaborating with Wide Nets versus One Deep Hole. And a great picture of this is we had one girl who came out of a trafficking situation where both her and her daughter were trafficked violently by her husband, by a father. And now we're 2 years past. Both of them have gotten scholarships for school, and so they are actually going to school. They both are in their own safe housing situations. They just recently were given their scholarships by a partner organization and found out this week. They both now the mother is raising 3 other small children. The other young lady will be going to school and starting her career in being an esthetician. But the one thing both of them said is, we actually get to live our own life and we feel finally free. And to have an individual tell you that they finally feel like they can live their own life and they've never had that option before until you saw them is quite powerful.
Yeah. You are a true superhero in our community and beyond, Candace. Thank you for speaking so openly with us. And if you're listening to this and you want to be a part of helping, there's so many ways to do that. And this just spoke to me, and I know you and I will eventually figure out what that looks like for me in being part of helping these victims. But if we are sitting at home right now thinking, I have items to donate, my time, I want to be there for somebody, what's the best place to go?
You can reach out to us on social media at Join Exitus on our Instagram page or Facebook, and then also just our website, joinexitus.org. We have an informational email that you can get there. This is also one of the lines that our victims and survivors also contact, and those who suspect of trafficking as well. So we have people that are monitoring those emails constantly. So whether you're on the end of, I feel like I may have someone that's in a difficult situation, to I have something I'd like to donate, email that same email, and someone is monitoring that daily.
Okay, will you tell us one more time what that is?
Absolutely. Joinexitus.org, and there is an informational link email, and you just click on that link, and it'll open up right to an email for you.
Okay, amazing. You're a phenomenal human being. Thank you for all that you are doing to help these victims, and we hope to have you back. Thank you for being on the podcast today, Candace. It was really great to talk with you.
Thank you so much for having me and having hard conversations. I really appreciate it.
Very
this
important
is what changes the world.
Yeah, very important to do. And thank you at home for listening to another episode of Fresh Off the Set. Please rate, review, and subscribe, and we will see you next week. Congrats, you made it to the end. If you want to continue to freshen up your day, you can watch us on Fresh Living every weekday on CBS Channel 2 in Utah at 1 o'clock. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel, KUTV Fresh Living, and follow us on social media. We will see you next week.